All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm excited about this one here tonight. UK time for our friends here on Sportswire Radio because our guest here has been one of our favorites on Sportswire Radio. And it's been just about a year or so, a year to the day, that we first had him on here. He's been on a number of different times since, but he's really a part of some really, really cool storylines. He's had some big feuds, some people that we know here very well on Sportswire Radio. We're going to talk about that, a number of companies that you've seen him in, and he even celebrated a birthday recently, and we're wearing, oh, by the way, his merchandise. We're going to talk about all of that. He needs no further introduction, but because he hasn't been on a while and he's one of our favorites, he's getting anyway. So with that, without further ado here on the Sports Report, number one, Global Sports Shop, wrestling star here, the Egyptian underdog, Young Horus. My friend, how are you?
Thanks very much, Tom. I always love that introduction. I'm doing absolutely fantastic, mate. It's great to be back on. How are you doing?
I hope you're all right after that. And it's been a while here since I've done one of those. And my voice has actually been kind of so-so these past couple of days. So I was kind of surprised that I actually was able to pull that off here. But I have a couple of people already tuned in. Thank you for those that are out there on YouTube. I know if you're on Facebook, I'll share the link here shortly on YouTube. But my friend, it's been a while. But I want to talk about first things first. I guess kind of what you're in the moment here for currently in UKW. And you've been kind of outsmarting, almost in a way, kind of a mix of Eddie Guerrero, a mix of Ric Flair and dirtiest player in the game, but actually not so dirty in that sense. But you've been kind of outrunning, outthinking, outmaneuvering Henry Winter. And for those that are listening and watching, I mean, this has really been one of the more intriguing matches and feuds I've watched a little bit here over the past few weeks in pro wrestling. And talk about how you've been able to find ways or new ways to kind of reinvent the wheel when it comes to Henry Winter.
Well, to be honest with you, Henry Winter doesn't think of me as a serious wrestler. He thinks of me as a joke. And he proved that just as much as when I was invited out onto the stage by Brett Hadley in my return to just address the crowd, talk to the people, say thank you to UKW for bringing me back into the fold. And before I could even really get my first sentence out, Henry Winter comes running out. Well, he didn't come running out; he comes waddling.
Yeah, he really can't run, by the way. I mean,
he's exactly deceptively quick, to be honest with you. I'll give him that.
Okay.
But it was evident that Henry doesn't think of me as a serious threat. But the thing was, when we had our first match, he couldn't beat me. He couldn't knock me down 1, 2, 3. He couldn't make me quit. My ankle, I can still feel my ankle hurting to this day. And that's the thing. He had to literally knock me out. He had to knock me unconscious for me to ever give up. So then a week after, I wanted to prove that wasn't just him being, fluky in a way. I said, I'm going to prove to everybody what I am made of. And I had a trick up my sleeve. And like you say, a bit of that Viva la Raza sauce. That was very helpful in pulling one over on Henry Winter. And to be honest with you, now that doesn't matter how I won. I still have that W in the column.
And they're big wins.
Henry Winter.
Well, absolutely, they're big wins. And I'll get to the wins part, and I'll get to the comments here, and I'll load everybody again. But, I mean, you had to have, thought about this last second, because you don't kind of come across, how did you figure this out? Was this, by plan, design, or it's, last minute? I mean, because the way you pulled this off, I mean, you could go two ways on this. I mean, talk about it for those that are listening and watching.
I mean, to be honest with you, I had a few things in my head of what possibly I could do to beat him. And it just so happened that the stars aligned in the right way, that the referee's back had been turned. I had a chair in my hand, and Henry Winter girded me, tapped his chin. He girded me to hit him. He said, "Do it." So I said, "You know what? I'm going to do something just a little bit smarter."
Oh, you did.
I'm not going to play Winter's game. I'm going to play my own game. And I didn't end up unconscious that night. In fact, I won the match.
You definitely did. You definitely did, and
I
I
beat
don't
him.
think he was expecting what you were able to pull off here. And I'll come to that in a second. Let me say hello to some people.
He's
Go
saying
ahead.
a lot of excuses because we were supposed to have a third match. I was stood there waiting in the ring.
Yep.
And then he comes up on screen drinking, I don't know what he had, a martini or some sort of cocktail. Might have just been a beer in his hand. But the thing is, he came up with all these excuses saying he does things on his time, not when other people tell him. All right then, Winter, I understand. You're scared of me now. You know that I'm just that little bit smarter than you. And you know that next time I get in the ring with you, I'm going to absolutely mug you off. That's plain and simple.
You definitely did that here. Also, want to get to some comments here, and I'm going to come back to that. I want to say hello to my guests here that are going to be on tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Our friends over at Dark Cryptic Wrestling, of course, DKW. Please follow them on YouTube. We'll have a number of the guys there. Combat Joe, Matthew Forsaken, the champion, Darkron himself. Just want to stop in on my break and say, hey, thank you for your support. I'll see you later, Tom. Also, Soldier GP, who's one half of the IMF Tag Team Champions. They're out there on YouTube, IMF Wrestling 666. He's also the DKW Hardcore Champion. He says hello. Want to give a big shout out to our GM over in Firestar Championship. We're going to definitely get to Firestar in a little while. A lot to say about Firestar. Very excited to speak Firestar. That is, of course, here, Mr. Stu Tunney himself. Hello, Stu. I believe here this is the Necessary Evil Palmer himself. I believe Mr. Palmer also from Firestar, a number of different places you'll see him in as well. Evening, gentlemen. Our friends over at Backyard Elite Wrestling, thank you for tuning in. And also, Andrew Hanley. All right, so you got these wins, and talk about how big this is to be able to one-up Mr. Winter, and kind of how do we channel this? Because there's no question that he was trying to say things that some people had said in the past. But I think what you've done here these past several months, and it was even said during the telecast of the matches that you had with Winter, that you haven't quit. You've had this heart. You've had this fight. And we've seen this with you here throughout where you've kind of battled. You had the losing streak. You went through these different scenarios where, things were against you. But here you are, still standing, working in all these different places, and now wins over Henry Winter. So how do we kind of channel this to continue this momentum and to kind of prove the people, the naysayers, like a Henry Winter wrong?
Well, that's the point. Like you just said, I've gone through all this before. You know me. I'm never one to back down, regardless of the size of my opponent, regardless of how scary they are. And finally, I was able to prove to everyone just how good I am, and prove at the same time that you shouldn't always count the little guy out.
Absolutely. No, listen, absolutely. Go ahead.
That I work very hard to sort of break the stigma of. I think a lot of people will, look at the size difference in a fight and in a wrestling match and think, that little guy's got done for. But you'll find, and especially when you compare, say, the Attitude Era to now, the size of these top guys is only getting, it's only declining. The talent, I believe, is skyrocketing.
Absolutely.
The people like myself in this business that put in so much more work, have to can't just rely on their size. They have to put in so much work, and they have to rely on their raw natural ability and their own talent to be able to make it anywhere, to get the eyes on them. Because you can be, 6'6" and 250 pounds, and you'll get eyes on you.
You
purely
can't.
on that.
Meanwhile, you can't move in the ring. You can't do anything, and you're slow as molasses. But if you're, let's say, under 6 foot, and that was always the old analogy in the WWF, now WWE, that Vince McMahon would never have a champion that was less than 6 foot. Now, certainly, Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels kind of broke that mold. I mean, they were 6 foot just about. Maybe Bret Hart was 6'1", but it was always you had to have a big guy who was a champion. Whether it was Hogan, whether it was Undertaker, whether it was Diesel, whether it was Ultimate Warrior and physique, and certainly Stone Cold was big, The Rock. But obviously, you're here doing that, and you said something interesting, and I want to go back to that locally here for our scene in the UK, because you said something that I think a lot of people, when they watch this or they're watching it now, might find it fascinating. Is that something you fight inside, knowing that, okay, you're a shorter guy and there's a number of big guys that we see here, and they're automatically, they're put in a certain way. You're put in these matches, maybe, I don't want to say designed to fail, but almost kind of like how Henry Winter was trying to make you look, almost like you're not serious. Is that something that you're fighting inside of you to kind of try to overcome, to kind of get where you want to be? I mean, talk to me about that, because that was a really interesting thing you just said.
Well, that's the thing, is like never really in my life until I became a part of wrestling did I ever find that my height or my size was ever an issue. I never felt like I always used to say that tall people are just compensating, and it never became an issue to me until, like you say, I was almost designed to fail in the eyes of some of these promoters that will put me against somebody who they think is just going to run straight over me. And then it might surprise a few of them when, in fact, actually, I hold my own, or I even, beat them. And then it kind of throws, all the cards into the air, and it's just a matter of what else I can do, what other opportunities they'll give me. And I just believe that a lot of the time it's just to do with proving myself. And like you say, I've never really found it an issue for myself. It's never really been in like an internal battle. It's always been sort of that I need to prove to other people what I'm capable of, because I know I'm quite confident
and we know, listen, I've watched you in the ring in several companies. I've watched you at least, I've watched maybe 9 or 10 of your matches the last year. So, I mean, I kind of have an idea of how you work in the ring. So there's no question to me that you can go. There's no question to me that you certainly bring a lot to the table. And I think just from where you were a year ago and even throughout last year, and you had to go through these things and overcoming the streak that would happen, and then you kind of got to where you are now. You're beating these guys that are certainly legitimate names and have been established in the industry here. And it's almost like, in a way, you're doing 2 for the price of 1. You're having to work twice as hard as everybody else because you're trying to prove people. And I think personally, I just want to say it on the record, I think it's an unfair stigma, and I do think that the stigma is breaking, because I look at guys like 2-Bit. I look at guys like Jack Johnson. I look at those guys as examples. Davey Getsu, Anthony Getski now, right? Eitan Steen, another example. Guys who have been champions or are current champions, and they've been kind of, how can I put it, break the cycle. And I kind of see, and you can react to any way you want with this, but, I've obviously had you on now. It was like 3 or 4 different times, maybe 4 times now. And I've seen you in the ring. I've seen you progress. We're going to talk about some of that in a second. But I want to go on the record and say that I see you going in terms of the way that those guys are either gone or have been going. Like I said, a 2-Bit I had on during COVID, the middle of COVID, and look at where 2-Bit was then, and look at where 2-Bit is now. Getski I've had on, and Getski's obviously been a champion. He's been out there in different places. Eitan Steen works different than you, but he's a champion currently. And obviously Jack needs no introduction. So I kind of see you guys that I just mentioned, you're right there with them, and I think you're going to be there. And does that give you, maybe looking at them, maybe motivation that there's a guys, that these are your peers, They're basically the same size. You might even be taller than some of them. I mean, what's your reactions to all that?
Yeah, definitely, 100%. Like a lot of these guys that I've seen them, a few of these guys I've trained with, like well, for a few more names as well, like you said with the 2-bit, Jack Johnson. Jack Johnson's a massive inspiration to me.
Yeah, Jack. I mean, Jack is amazing. I mean,
100%, he's unreal. People like Scotty Rourke, people like
I had Scotty Rock on during COVID. Absolutely,
exactly like Leon Slater, like Robbie X. Those people are inspirations and people that I've watched for several years. I've not had the pleasure of working with them, but I've had the pleasure of being in the same sort of locker rooms as them, same sort of circles as them, and those people are massive inspirations to me. And definitely people like that motivate me to become to follow in their footsteps and to help, because I find that every few years there's almost like a new generation of wrestlers that sort of pop up. And I want to say there's maybe been about, in the 7 or 8 years that I've been around wrestling, there's probably been, I want to say maybe two generations of wrestlers, maybe 3. And I do consider those guys almost like the previous generation. Not to say that they're past it and done, but I feel like there are several years ahead of us, and we look at those, people in my position will look at them and say, we definitely want to aspire to be in that position, to be at that level. And their names on probably any wrestler's bucket list, definitely ones that I work with, to one day wrestle with and to learn from. And a lot of those people that I've named, and especially and the ones that you've named, like you say, I might be taller than them. I know a couple of them might be younger than me. And even with the age, even with me being older, I still want to learn from.
absolutely.
Who've been around wrestling for, I've been around for a fraction compared to them.
Well, it's funny. 2-bit is actually, I think he's like 23, if I'm not mistaken. He's been in wrestling for 10
So
years.
a lot younger than me then.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to think that here's a guy that's in his early to mid 20s and he's wrestled for 10 years already. I mean,
Exactly.
so so it's so fascinating, and there's no question. You're 100% right that wrestling every like 4 or 5 years, it's almost like again another cycle of talent, and obviously things evolve. And again, even thinking about our big companies, AEW, MJF, a guy who's from near my stomping grounds. I mean, he's maybe the shortest champion we have out there in all of pro wrestling. I mean, Seth Rollins is not 6'7", 6'8". So the fact that you have champions out there that, I think whether it's locally, whether it's a Jack, whether it's an Aton Steen, I mean, the King of the Death Match, I mean, you can certainly be in those discussions. And I have comments here. Let me get to people. Stu says, I definitely see a banging title collection for the career of young Horus. I think we're all in agreement with that. Anthony Finkel, hello to you. Hello to you. Appreciate that. And we'll definitely say hello further on here. But, I mean, when I come back to UKW, obviously we're back here. We have these couple of wins. So in terms of, like, what are your goals now that you're back in UKW?
Well, I'm back. I've been drafted to Showdown. Red Brocco was kind enough to draft me as his first pick onto Showdown, and honestly, that was a huge honor in itself, just to be considered the first name on his mind. So he obviously sees a lot in me. Like you say, I've had a few wins. I've even taken a few losses in the same time. But those people that I've beaten are some of the top caliber of wrestlers in UKW and UKW's past. And again, they're people that I've learned a lot from, people that I've enjoyed sharing the ring with, even though we may have our differences. And at the end of the day, I'm ready to make Showdown my show. I'm ready to make 2023 my year. And setbacks occur. Setbacks happen in everything. But I'm here now. I'm more determined than ever. I've already shown, UKW management my commitment and how good I've gotten, how much better I am, and that it's not just going to be losses from here on out.
No, there's no question that you certainly have had some setbacks. You've had some pitfalls, but listen, everybody has them. It only makes you stronger. If it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. And that's why I want everybody to follow young Horus here on Instagram at Horus Russell. Also, you can catch him on Facebook. You can also catch him on part of a number of different companies, including our friends over at UKW. Firestar Championship Wrestling. I have a big show coming up here. Going to get to that here in a little while. Also, our very good friends over at New British Promotions Wrestling. They have a show that's been rescheduled. It's supposed to actually be today because funny, Horace, we're actually supposed to have you on today to promote what was supposed to be tomorrow's show, but it's okay because thankfully we got the announcement. We thank obviously management and staff, so we have a show. We're still going to announce, which is going to be a little bit away from you, but still all great stuff. There are a number of different companies I have a feeling we're going to be speaking about here with you, and my name is the Reverend Tom Bryson. If you are out there on YouTube, continue to give us a subscribe on YouTube at Sportzwire Radio, also Facebook at Sportswire Radio. My personal page is Tom Bryson. If, as always, you don't want to see the mugshot, the long hair, the mutton chops, sportnarium.com/player, and have a lot of content here coming up for these next few days. So stay tuned for that. But, let's speak about a couple different things here first. And let's go over to our friends over at New British Promotions Wrestling. Obviously, we have a new show here coming up, and it's actually, as we just talked about here, from June 30th to now July the 28th. And I mean, we have a feud here that's going to be continuing, and I mean, fill people in for those that are listening and watching. And I know it involves a couple of people I know very well, including La Flama. Obviously, know La Flama very well from CWE. So, talk about kind of where we go from there when it comes to our friends over at NBPW.
Well, to be honest with you, it kind of all started in Rye Hill, in Wakefield, and it was in a match. I was teamed up with La Flama, and we were teaming against the team of Gunnison and Mikey Andrews, and we actually got the win at that point. And I couldn't help but notice that there was a lot of I don't know what the issue is. There's some sort of ongoing issue with Mikey Andrews and those that he once called his allies Project Mayhem.
Yep.
And I found that probably one of the main reasons why we won that match was because them two just didn't get along. They didn't function well as a team. Their dynamics was completely off. Me and Flammer, we've known each other for quite a while. We've worked with each other. We've wrestled against each other. We've wrestled together. But I found that Flammer represents something that I don't want to be a part of. Flammer is too optimistic.
I saw that firsthand in CWE when he wrestled the Modern Day Mafia there for those tag team titles, actually. All right. Tell us a little more.
Look, I'm not going to take anything away from La Flama, but I am leagues above him.
Okay, all right.
The fact is that I can put my money where my mouth is, and when I'm going to set up against somebody who's a lot bigger, a lot tougher than me, or would be considered that, I can actually hold myself. La Flama, he doesn't have that spark in him. That's unfortunate to say, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry if that upsets you, Tom. I know you're a big fan of La Flama. I know you're.
I know you're really. The Modern Day Mafia. They're big friends of ours.
Like the Modern Day Mafia, just like the Modern Day Mafia did, they showed La Flama what's what.
I don't know if I'm a La Flama fan. I will tell you though. What I will tell you, because I think that's a little bit unfair. But because obviously the Mafia, they're very good friends of ours here on Sportswire. The last thing I want to do is upset Uncle Ralph and Joel Cobra and certainly Dave Douglas. But I will say though, it's surprising to me that you would kind of have a difference of opinion on that optimistic style, because you think about it now. I think you're right in the sense that you have kind of proven that you can hang with some of the best of them here. And I'm going to get to Firestar in a second after we finish FPW. Go ahead, jump in.
Let me make this clear for you. There's a huge difference between optimism and realism.
Okay.
I'm realistic. I know I can handle myself. Phoenix La Flama does not know that. He knows now, after facing the Mafia, that he can't handle himself when he runs his mouth, when he gets too big for his boots. So we move on. I'm no longer going to be teaming with La Flamme. To be honest with you, that was pretty much made clear at New British Promotions' next show, in which I had a match. I had that four-way elimination Iron Man rules match, whatever you want to call it. And I got screwed out of the win. Like you said, like with Henry Winter, I had several plans ahead of time if something like that was to go wrong.
And I think we did in comments speak about that here on Sportswire, because obviously we were promoting that show, and we had a number of different things that jump in.
For those who have missed it, I've now acquired the amazing services of Joshua Kemper to stand beside me as my number 2 right-hand man.
Now this is a big deal, and this is a big deal
it's a big deal because he's big Joshua Kemper.
Well,
that's the point.
He's
supposed to be a big deal.
I understand.
Joshua Kemper holds titles in several companies. He holds championship gold, tag team championship gold in Firestar, albeit he's suspended for his actions at Ripenden, but that's beyond the point. We have our differences, we have our similarities, we see eye to eye on some things. That's the case. It happens it all happens in all walks of life, Tom. That's fine.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, my interests and Joshua Kemper's interests at New British Promotions are very similar. And that's why he's officially my right-hand man. And we proved that against Tiger McGuigan and Dan Domain. And I believe we have unfinished business to attend to. Because we should have been the ones standing tall that night. But no. Tiger and Dan Domain, they took us by surprise. We'll iron out the kinks of our relationship soon. I'm sure that me and Kemper are going to go onto the right track very soon.
I certainly think, knowing Mr. Kemper and knowing his size, that's why did I not emphasize the word big deal, because this man is certainly needing no introduction. He certainly walks tall with a big stick, figuratively and literally. And I have to think here, coming in, this gives you kind of what you want and maybe what you want to achieve, and kind of going back to what some people have said here earlier, in some collection here of some belts here for you, my friend. And
well, that's the thing. What Kemper's going to do is quite simple. He's going to stand and make sure that nobody interferes with my business. The same thing that I'm going to do with him. It's a mutual friendship. It's a mutual partnership. It's not even really a friendship. It's a mutual partnership.
Yeah, as a wrestling, you don't want to have friendship. It's about goals. But
we have an agreement that we are going to make sure that nobody interferes with what we have set out for ourselves. I can still stand in the ring and beat my opponent with or without Kemper's help.
You've established that. Yeah, I agree with you. You've established that. No question.
There's a new division that's going to be forming in New British Promotions. And I believe that, if anything, I belong at the top of the super middleweight division of New British Promotions. The thing is, I believe I am the best cruiserweight, middleweight, super middleweight of this current flock of wrestlers that have just burst up onto the scene. And I want to put an open challenge out to basically anybody who wants to step foot in the ring with me and prove me wrong. gonna have to get through Kemper first.
Ooh, well, I'll tell you what, ladies and
Uh,
gentlemen.
I'm probably going to be starting with Phoenix La Flama. Because, like you said, and like I've said, it gets a little bit too big for his boots. You saw that with the Mafia,
I did. I watched the match.
with young Horus.
You are certainly not Phoenix La Flama. I will definitely agree with you on that. You have definitely proven that here the past year. And I want to make sure everybody knows that you can go to NBP Wrestling for more information on the next show coming up here. We have it on Friday, July the 28th at the Woodhouse West End here. It's the Working Men's Club Institute. It's at 149 Sheffield Road. Its official admission is £8, front row £10, family £22. Doors open, I believe, at 7. Is it 7:30? I think 7:30 and 8 o'clock is the first match here. You can go for more information again at ticketsource.co.uk /NBP-wrestling. You can also reserve through NBP Wrestling on Facebook, also NBP Wrestling on Instagram as well. Certainly, young Horus has already laid the stage of what he's going to do here. Also, the juggernaut John Allens, who's going to be back with us here, I think, in your chair right around this time next week. I think next Friday we're aiming for it. The Juggernaut obviously is our old school champion. And let me get to management here first, if you don't mind, because NBP has actually come in here and they say here that I hear that a lot of our international wrestlers who are interested in getting their hands on young Horus. So what do you say to it? Because apparently management has heard a little bit about what you had to say here. What would you like to say toward that?
It doesn't matter where they're from. Come from Europe, come from America, come from Asia. It makes no difference to me who you are. I'll face you in the ring and I'll beat you. And New British Promotions, you guys already know that for a fact. You guys already know just how dangerous I can be. You know how dangerous Kemper is. Together, we're unstoppable. I'm going to guarantee that.
Well, there's a reasons why we're very excited about the future of New British Promotions Wrestling. And I want to ask you something else here. It's slightly off the topic, and I kind of, in a way, introduced you coming on this week for, and obviously Paul Malin, obviously a legend here, obviously somebody that has done his fair share in the wrestling world. He has wrestled a who's who of people here when it comes to, you name him, whether it's a Doug Williams, who just retired, by the way, 2 weekends ago, I believe. Congratulations again on an amazing career. He's been in there with a who's who of people we're talking about here when it comes to the Warrior, Paul Malin. I mean, what do you, if anything, do you ask any advice for somebody like this, a guy that's been in there with a who's who of people and he's done it all and championship after championship? Is there anything that you take away and kind of what you've just laid here on Sportswire and kind of what you want to do and who you want to lay to the wayside? And, talk to me what kind of advice maybe you gather from him.
To be honest with you, the advice that you can ever take, the best advice you could probably take from Paul Malin would be to just watch him, work. It's brilliant to watch him in the ring and what he can do. He's been around for so long, and there's obviously a reason for that. It can be down to longevity, but most of the time it's down to, talent and his ability to wrestle anybody. He can get I'm sure he can get a good match out of any single person that he works with. And there are many people that you find in many different locker rooms who are all so, especially when you're just starting out, who are so vastly experienced compared to yourselves. You almost feel overwhelmed with how much knowledge there is just fitting into one locker room. And someone like Paul Malin, even though I've never actually spoken to him, he's definitely someone that I would, I would, any advice that I could get from Paul would be hugely appreciated. Any direction and any critique of anything that I do is, I always find that I will take it on board and I will use it to better myself. And, there are people like, Paul Malin and, Palmer, the necessary evil. There,
Martin Kirby.
just like Martin Kirby. Martin Kirby is somebody that I would definitely love to just sit and chew the ear off of, because, or have him chew my ear off, because I just want to listen to what he has to say, to be honest with you. And I'd love to have a conversation with him, like a long conversation with him about wrestling and about everything he's done, because I watched him from, when I started out wrestling. I saw him in Defy, and I've seen him in NGW, and the places that he can go and the things that he can do is just spectacular.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Him, Paul Mellon, people like that.
Johnny Storm, sure.
Johnny Storm. I had the pleasure of being in the same locker room as him back in Rye Hill. Again, not somebody that I've had too much of an interaction with. You don't get too much of that time to interact with each other in a personal sense, because you're focused on the job. You're focused on, unless you specifically go, right, I need to go to this person and talk to them, which someone like Paul Mellon, if I am ever in the locker room with him, I'm definitely going to be approaching him. Especially after the sort of nice things he had to say about the people at New British Promotions, because it's got a lot of talent there. It's got a lot of unseen talent, and I feel that New British Promotions will do what they can to put that in the spotlight. There's a lot of people who deserve it, and I think there's a lot of places that that they need to be seen at.
Right, and I think it's a company that, and I've said this on the air, and I've said this privately to the owner of the company, so I hope I'm not saying anything that the owner doesn't want to hear, but I think that it's a company that has a nice mix of the veterans, like a Johnny, like a Martin Kirby, certainly Paul. John Allen's can throw in, and then you have another bunch of talent, maybe you're in there as well, that kind of are like a nice mix of young and old. Not so much that they're old, but sort of veteran wrestlers that have been there, and they can kind of help in terms of just, everything else that, you can kind of get a sense of. And it's so important to, I think, kind of in the wrestling business, kind of learn from it. 19 years, somebody like a Paul Malin has been in here for. He talked about wrestling Tatanka. He talked about sharing locker rooms with the Rikishi, I believe it was. Doug Williams. Again, Doug Williams, I mean, to me, really the standard bearer in a lot of ways, I think, of British professional wrestling, especially what he did here in America, coming over here in TNA and having all that success, being a part of Fortune. So I think that everything that you get a chance, even if it's 2 minutes, I never forget, very quickly, RPD. The first time RPD came onto Sportswire, and he talked about his kind of early dealings with William Regal and how he established this relationship with them, and he just kept soaking information from him. He would email him, and he would see him every now and then, because it's William Regal, right? Obviously, he's kind of like our standard bearer right now when it comes to British professional wrestling, maybe all time after the British Bulldog's passing. So I think if you have any opportunities there to kind of have those moments, it can certainly help you for your career. That's why, again, I want everybody to follow our friends over at New British Promotions Wrestling, NBP Wrestling, on Instagram, also Facebook. New show July the 28th. I know if I had a chance, young Horus, I had the opportunity to go there in the UK, I would definitely want to watch you, and a whole slew of talent here. And we're going to have more with that next week with John Allens himself. And John, of course, is our King of Old School champion. And I wanted to ask you, I guess, speaking of champions, I know there might be some shows coming up, some promotions maybe you might be showing up in before I get to Firestar Pro Wrestling, and you might want to share any. I know one company I know off the top of my head is a company I know very, very well, but anything you want to share for our audience where we might see you next in?
Well, next month, 22nd of July, there's going to be the GTM Rumble.
I look forward to that show every year. GTM does it. That is one of my favorites in the year. Oh boy, talk about that.
Well, I was in it. I was in the Rumble last year, and squared off with Rarebit. Managed to get my hands dirty with Gareth Angel. Didn't last too long against Gareth Angel and Rarebit, but that's not a combination that anybody wants to have to deal with.
Oh no, especially Rarebit now is our champion, and certainly Bentley found that out.
Congratulations, Rarebit, by the way. Congratulations. I'm sure I'll be seeing a lot of you in the future. I every single time I come on here, I'll tell you how much I want to wrestle Rabbit.
Yeah, you've said that before. It's so funny that you said that because I remember having Disciple on and we brought up Rarebit before. This was before Disciple had took the title from Gareth. This was several months ago. And Rarebit was kind of a name like, I don't really know if I want any part. Even Bentley. We've had Bentley on. Bentley almost is a regular here when we have the GTM shows every other month, aside from Wrestling Church. And it's always Rarebit's name comes up, and it's like, some people, even the big guys, like a Bentley, but yet this goes to who you are. This goes to who you are. You don't care what size they are, what they've done. You want them. And Rarebit, I mean, no bigger example of that. The company's champion, former Bolton Town champion. So this is kind of who you are almost.
100%, 100%. Like, I don't understand what the difference. I don't see a difference between someone like Rarebit or Rex Savage or Big Duncan. People like that, they don't make.
Well, he's big, Big Duncan.
Like, don't make a difference to me. It does not make. Because I'm here to wrestle. I'm here to prove myself. I'm here to win. And regardless of how big they come, how tall they are, how strong they are, I'm going to give it my all. Someone like Rarebit, he won't know what hit him. And that was the case in the Rumble. I took him by surprise.
You did. I remember watching it very well. Yes, you did.
Yes, he got the better of me, but that's neither here nor there. And I can guarantee you now I'm a lot better. I'm a lot better wrestler. I'm a lot better worker. I've got a lot more experience. I think if I was to face Rarebit, I think he'd have a run for his money.
Well, you said a couple things here because I do want to focus on GT Ministries for a second. I please want everybody to follow GT Ministries at GTM UK. It's GT Ministries UK. Follow them on almost every platform out there that you get a chance to. Please follow them. They're on Instagram. They're on TikTok. They're on Facebook, you name it, and they stream all these shows for free on their Facebook and YouTube pages. So please like and follow them at GT Ministries UK, especially on Facebook and YouTube. I watch every GTM show live. I've had the opportunity for almost 2 years to do that. So I cannot stress enough the fact that you need to go like and follow, subscribe, to do everything you can to support GT Ministries, especially what they do for the community in Bradford at the Fountains Church, everything that organization does to help the community. Please support them. But, it's interesting. A couple of things you said here. The first thing is Rarebit is the company's champion. So obviously going right there, right for the jugular. But also in this Rumble where, last year, I think I go back to Slugger Hampton and what Slugger Hampton did in that Rumble. And it kind of put him in a different path, in a different way. And I kind of think here, this Rumble, you could have an opportunity to do some real damage here and kind of further where you said you were last year from now. Think about last year to where you are now, working in all these different companies, being a contender, a championship contender. This could all crystallize here in 22 and a half days from now. So is that on your mind that this could be almost, last year was quote unquote the summer of Slugger. Well, now, 3 weeks from now, and starting on the 22nd of July, it could very well be the summer of Horus. You say to that?
It's got a nice ring to it, definitely.
It rhymes.
Ring to it. I found that I've got quite a good experience in Rumbles and Battle Royals and over the top type of shenanigans, whatever gimmick you want to throw at me. The thing is that, again, like you say, it's always people underestimate me. People don't think that people count me out before I'm out. And the thing is that, like, you can hear somebody like commentary in UKW or even somewhere like GTM, commentary will count me out before I've even stepped into the ring. And then I prove them wrong. And everybody counts me out before I step into the ring. And then I prove them wrong. So maybe at GTM, maybe in the Rumble, maybe it's time that I proved everybody wrong. And maybe it's time that I pulled a few tricks out of the bag.
Well, don't tell us those tricks, because you damn well know between now and the 22nd of July, I'm going to have wrestlers messaging me and they say, hey, I heard what Horus said, or we're going to have wrestlers come on here on Sportswire. I mentioned Bentley. Bentley gets in our every other month before the GTM show. Bentley's here. You know, Bentley's going to hear that. You know, somebody's going to hear that. Jack's going to hear that. Disciple's going to hear that. You know, so somebody's going to hear that out there. So don't tell us the tricks. What I'm going to stick to, what I'm going to say here, as I said a few minutes ago, I'm going to stick to my word. It very well could be the summer of Horus. It could very well start the 22nd of July. We have July 28th also with our friends over at NBPW. But I just have a feeling here you are on the verge of breaking out here to championship gold. I want to say hello here to, I guess, our guest here Sunday night, the good guy CJ Black. I know he's from another company over in ROEW here in Michigan. I'll certainly get to you Sunday, but right now we're kind of talking about things here in the world of British professional wrestling. So I do say thank you for tuning, although the individual certainly has a misguided opinion on things, but we'll certainly give him his floor Sunday. We're here right now with young Horus, so thank you for tuning in. But, I want to come back to Firestar Championship Wrestling because we have a big match coming up here. And I feel like, tell me your thoughts on this. This is almost months in the making with you and an individual, speaking of individuals who certainly have an interesting view of the world, that is Remus Kane. This is a feud that just has been going and going. It's actually going on in multiple different companies here. And I believe it's going to, I guess, maybe, just maybe, literally, it's going to come to a head here coming up. And we're going to see you in a no ropes match. Now, first of all, I don't know if I've covered a no ropes match here before on Sportswire. I've done a lot of things on Sportswire Radio. Some of them I might regret. Some of them I might be proud of. But having here a no ropes match here against Mr. Remus Kane, and certainly our general manager who's here with us, that is Mr. Tunney, I know was a part of that. So I wanted to ask you here, obviously there's some history here recently in Firestar with the Openweight Championship. I've seen you wrestle in some other companies, namely UKW. There's been other places that you guys have kind of had this feud here, but I think it all comes to a head here coming up on August the 12th. So for those that are listening and watching here on Sportswire Radio, talk about this here. Is this the moment maybe we finally kind of end this here between you and Mr. Remus Kane? Because he's done some things here, and let's talk about it.
Like you say, it's been going on for way too long. I thought finally when I beat Remus Kane in UKW that I was done with him. I thought that was it. I thought that was, finito, finished. We fought in a cage. We fought in a plain ring. Now we might as well fight without ropes. It wasn't even me that really came up with the idea. It was actually our general manager.
Yes, who I just mentioned, who's here with us, by the way. And I say hello to him, and I'm going to get to him in a second. Go ahead.
I'll tell you, I've told this story before. I posted it up on social media shortly after my match with a whole host of the guys. It was the 6-man elimination match for the Openweight Championship. It was our first show at Ripponden.
Yep.
And the thing is, I didn't really pay too much attention to this, but Mr. Tunney says to me, sort of medical or checking me out. I had pretty nasty cuts, to be fair, around my wrist where Remus had handcuffed me to the ropes. Stu, he says to me, he goes, "Did you know that Remus, pretty much throughout the entire match, the entire time we were in the ring together, all he did was cheat. Didn't cheat in didn't cheat in the rules of the match because it was no disqualification, but he cheated in the sense that every opportunity he got, he used the ropes to his advantage. You saw that sort of.
I watched the match. Yes, I did. I watched it on the Facebook page of Firestar Championship Wrestling. Go ahead.
You saw it hit its climax really when I came out to try and make the save for Kai, because he'd been attacked by Leo and his cronies. I wasn't standing up for any of that because I have a lot of respect for Kai. He's a very talented individual, and he's sort of turned.
Well, I've seen him. Listen, with Hammerhead Smith, I've seen him in the LWF. I mean, there's no question. That's a guy that has established himself, like you, is a guy that has just kind of gone on here and just kind of progressed. Whereas a talent that you keep an eye on. I agree with you 1,000%.
And so I didn't want to stand for that. I said that enough is enough. If people are going to get involved in the match, then I might as well make my way back out there and get involved myself and sort of even the odds. And I stepped out, and like you, and I'm sure everybody saw. If you haven't, go back and look at it. I was blindsided by Remus Kane coming out of the curtains. He handcuffed me to the ropes, and whilst Kai was beaten inside the ring, I was hung outside the ring and whipped pretty mercilessly, to be honest with you. And
It was painful watching it on Facebook. I won't lie. It definitely.
people experience it, Tom. That's the thing. Belts aren't really supposed to be used to hit somebody with.
Well, I think about when I was a kid getting hit with the belt. And there was definitely times I certainly was out of line. I do remember getting the belt, and it hurt. So I can only imagine it hurt in the ring as well.
Well, the difference is getting the belt from your parents is your parents actually love you.
Well, I'd have to let me get back to you on mine.
Okay. It's getting a little bit too deep.
I'm kidding, but go ahead.
The thing is, right? This all happens. I get taken away. I get checked out by medical staff upstairs. Stu says all the way through this match, he used the ropes to his advantage. He cheated. He choked you against them. He used the he handcuffed me to these ropes. He said, "How would you like to get your revenge on Remus?" I said, "All right, I definitely want a match with him." That's why you even asking me the question. You might as well just make the match. He said, "No, I've got an option for you. You can have this match without the use of the ropes." And funnily enough, I had to kind of take a second because, like you say, Tom, you've watched a lot of my matches. I use my environment to my advantage. That tends to be something that a lot of my offense stems from using the ropes. And if anything, it'll probably put me at a bigger disadvantage against Remus. But I think at the same time, I know I'm a better wrestler than Remus. I know I'm better in the ring than Remus. So regardless of if I don't have the ropes or not, I know I can beat him one-on-one. I've done it before. I can do it again. Time though, it's worth proving that. It's worth finding out who truly is the better wrestler. And I think there's no more purer way of doing that than taking the ropes off of the ring, taking away any advantage he has, any advantage that I have, and just purely wrestling until one of us taps out or is pinned.
Well, let me ask you a question on that. And again, I've said this a few minutes prior, and I'll say it again. In the nearly 5 years I'm doing this, I don't think I've covered a no ropes match before. So I have to ask you, I know you've wrestled a lot. You have had a lot of matches. I would dare say almost anybody we've had here on Sportswire over the past year, maybe with the exception of Hammerhead Smith, I want to say, you've probably wrestled the most matches of anybody I could think of over the past year. So, but I still have to ask you, how do you prepare for a no ropes match?
You train without the ropes. There's no rope.
Right. Well, that's a dog part of it, but I just thought it would be so dicks. Everybody does have to, run the ropes. Think about using.
That's the thing is that like a lot of the training that you do is not inside the ring. A lot of the training is done on mats because a lot of wrestling is that grappling aspect.
Oh yeah, now that I've seen. I mean that I obviously know. I mean I've seen.
I think
post that stuff. Sure.
I think I have a huge advantage over Remus in. I think Remus might be a bit stronger than me, but I think I'm smarter than Remus. I think I'm a lot more technical.
Oh, you proved that with Henry Winter. There's no question. You have this up there. I would 1,000% agree with you.
I just think a lot more technical as well. I think that I'm capable of putting him in holds that he's not familiar with. I think I can find something that he doesn't have a counter to be able to either take him by surprise or just purely beat him. And the thing is that I've been told that Remus Kane will be. I'm not sure what it is. I think it might be a suspension, some form of punishment for Remus Kane, should any of his society cronies happen to get involved in the.
Well, I mean, they're certainly. I think they're down in numbers right now. So, I mean, I guess would have to figure out who that could be. I mean, I'll leave that, I suppose, for Mr. Kane or Mr. Tunney to kind of handle, because obviously we've heard some different things about society members. Some of them are, I guess, for different reasons, and maybe some obvious reasons out there in the world. I won't kind of share too much of that, but they're on leave for different reasons. Other ones, I guess, are on the injured list. That remains to be seen. So that would kind of maybe fill in the blanks on who that could be, but I'll certainly leave that for Mr. Kane and maybe even Mr. Tunney to kind of answer, because obviously we'll have a lot of Firestar coverage leading up to the August the 12th show.
Who it would be? They can't get involved, or
Okay.
Remus
Right, but that
is
was my
the
point. Is
entire
society
story.
members. I'm thinking of those members now. Again, some of them, they're not going to be there for different reasons. That would leave one name, but I'm going to leave that out there for the time being. That's obviously something that we'll find out. Before I come back to Fire, so I want to say hello to a couple of people. I want to say hello to my guest here coming up next week. Well, next Monday, the July the 10th. That is Mr. Big Cheese Logan. He's the CWE UK champion. Who, by the way, I saw him with Rhea Ripley. I saw him with the who's who of WWE. So obviously, Money in the Bank is here this week, a big weekend. And for those that are watching here on the UK, I hope you have a ticket. Are you going to be there by any chance this weekend?
It's in Sheffield right tonight.
I was wondering about that because I remember you moved. Any chance you're going to be there at Money in the Bank?
I'm not there. I'm not going to be there. No, unfortunately not.
Well,
But
listen, maybe Adam Cole might be giving you a phone call. So let's say never, though. You never say never out there. So
I'm here if you need me, Adam.
Well, we'll certainly let Mr. Tunney maybe see if he can make a phone call. But obviously, big shout out to the Big Cheese. In fact, huge shout out to him. In fact, I just tried one of the candy bars he gave me not too long ago. We'll share probably one or two of them on the air when he comes on. So always love hearing from the Big Cheese. He's going to talk about his announced match, speaking of which, with the Firestar Championship Wrestling champion, the Mr. Hammerhead Smith, who's also the Breakout Pro Wrestling World Champion. It's going to be a champion versus champion match over in CCW, a Falls Count Anywhere match. We're going to talk about that with the Big Cheese next Monday. So very, very excited to speak with the Big Cheese once again. Always love being with the Big Cheese, one of our favorites here. But also NBPW wants to say the best way to grow and improve is to throw yourself into the lion's den. You become the lion. Well, yeah, this is kind of going to be that match here with you and Remus. And Mr. Tunney says right in front of me that he saw the attack happen. Correct. So let me ask you then, coming on Firestar, before I ask you a few general thoughts and maybe one more company I want to squeeze in here before we get to closing thoughts here that you might be a part of here in the near and distant future, which is a favorite of ours on Sportswire. So what's your impression so far of general managers? Tunney, obviously, he's done a lot in a short amount of time. And the last show we had, I mean, talk about an epic, epic show that we saw there. And Hammerhead winning the title there, and that was a match a lot of people are still talking about. So, I mean, what are your impressions here so far of Firestar Championship Wrestling, especially the last show? And as a bonus, our general manager here, Stuart Tunney. I mean, what's your thoughts here in working in Firestar so far?
To be honest with you, Firestar, like you say, they're an absolutely amazing family of a company. The management there, they see so much potential in me. They have so many plans and they care so much about what they're doing in their company. They have so much passion for what they're doing. It's really great to see such a positive atmosphere in companies that never seems to really waver. And everybody's got everybody's back. We're all very respectful of each other. And like you say, in New British Promotions, just like at Firestar, there is a wealth of both veteran wrestlers who have traveled the world. You've got international wrestlers, and you've got
Tom LaRufa and Hammerhead Smith. Think about that match. I mean, what a bucket list match. I know Tom LaRufa as a knucklehead like me from America. I've seen him live on TV, and Hammerhead, who wrestled the Billington Bulldogs right before they went to MLW. What a dream match that was for a world title.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. And I got to watch that live and in person. It was a brilliant match. And Hammerhead, congratulations to you for winning that match. You know, it's another feather in the cap for yourself. Not too shortly after he won the Breakout Championship, the man's carrying 2 belts. He's an absolute star-studded wrestler and a brilliant mind as well, and a great respectful person. He's lovely to be around.
Absolutely.
Much as the crowd don't like him, I have a lot of respect for him, and as much as he doesn't like people, I like him as a person because I believe he's got a lot of experience. There's a lot you can learn from him, and he's very committed to this business. He's very committed to Firestar, and he's committed to any company that he works for. And it's very inspirational, very motivational in that sense, because you definitely want to sort of have those sort of morals and those qualities in any wrestler.
And he's a guy, again, his family name speaks for themselves.
He's a second generation, third. Regardless, he obviously comes from a background that know a lot about the business. So
yeah, the family name, it's almost like, a Joel Cobra's an example of that. Obviously, Hammerhead's an example of that, where it's almost like those are the kind of guys that you really get a chance to work with, and those guys can give you the opportunities to kind of soak up some information and knowledge. And guys like a Hammerhead, who wrestlers tell me all the time before I get to some comments, that's the guy they keep saying, and I know it anyway, but they say, Tom, that's the guy I might see one day get a phone call to go to Orlando or go to Jacksonville, meaning AKA WWE/NXT AEW, because he's that kind of guy. He's that good in the ring. And a match he put in, I think I just referenced a little while ago with him and Kyron, that was a match that I think to me might have been, it still might be a match of the year candidate. In fact, anytime Hammerhead's in the ring, I mean, you're obviously one of our favorites. You're always match of the year candidate too. But I mean, Hammerhead and what he does with the type of opponents, that's why I'm so fascinated to see his match coming up with the Big Cheese Logan, because the Big Cheese Logan's back. He's better than ever. And he's going to go up there with Hammerhead Smith in a Falls Count Anywhere match. That is a match I'm really excited for here. But let me also get to some more comments here. Our very good friend, Mr. James Taylor, the Nemesis, who's on YouTube, by the way, over 37,000 subscribers, one of our favorites. Always please follow him, Taft Taylor, Taft_Taylor on Instagram. He also hosts his own show. It's called The Nemesis Sessions. He interviews wrestlers from all over the place. He's a 25-year veteran in his own right. So I want to make sure I give a big shout out to him. He's always on my show, so I like to say hello to him. Also a big streamer. He does games. He does Promo Wrestling Federation. He does Stone Cold TikTok clips that are like, go get hundreds of thousands of views. So he's the man. Big shout out to him. I'm sure I'll be seeing him real soon here. But also Firestar Championship Wrestling. Please follow them Facebook, Instagram. Catch a whole slew of talent there. Always excited about Firestar Championship Wrestling. Stu is a huge part of that. And also shout out to NBPW, because management said, yeah, gotta jump in.
Mentioning Stu, you didn't let me speak about Stu, did you?
I was gonna get to that, actually. That was my point. What do you want to say about Stu, actually?
Well, that's what I want to say. I just want to say I want to give the guy a big thank you.
Yes.
I think that's long overdue from anybody from Firestar. Big thank you to him from the roster, because he's very generous. His company has sponsored us, and they're a very big part of the reason why we're able to put on these shows this year, and why we can put on such great shows in Ripponda. And we're very excited to become a huge part of that sort of that local scene there. And Stu's been very, he's clearly got the best interests at heart, because he, on his first night working with us, he's looked out for me. He was there making sure that I was okay with medical staff. He was making sure that I got what I deserved. And I think as well, Stu, if you're still there listening, there's something that I do actually want to address before we go any further with this, Tom. I know we don't have too long left, but what I want to address with Stu is that something that I think I also deserve, that I've not yet had a proper opportunity at. And I think you know what it is, Tom. It is obviously the open weight championship. I believe wholeheartedly that I deserve a chance at that title. I think that no matter who has been put in the ring, no matter who entered that first rumble, I was one of the last ones in the match. I started the match. I lasted that long. I showed you then just how good I am in the ring. I showed you live in Ripponton just how good I am. And you obviously see something in me. I know that you want a champion who's going to be a fighting champion. I know that you want a champion that you can be proud of at Firestar. Hammerhead Smith might not rub you the right way. So give me a shot at Leo McLean if I beat Remus Kane. If I beat Remus in this no ropes match August 12th, give me a shot at Leo McLean.
Well, may I bring up that Mr. Tunney is listening and that maybe that could be something that could be ironed out? I don't know, Mr. Tunney. Would that be something you could maybe make happen? That if Mr. Young Horus finds a way once again to defeat Remus Kane in this no ropes match, August the 12th, Firestar Championship Wrestling? Go ahead.
Thing is that I thought this sort of beef between me and Remus was done with. I thought that had been finished at UKW. It was Remus who went his way into Firestar Championship Wrestling just to get at me. He's not interested in the Openweight Championship. He's not interested in Championship Gold at Firestar. He's not interested in success there. What he's interested in is meddling with me. He's interested in getting at me. So if I should be the one who won that match. If it wasn't for Remus, I would have won that match. He's the one that caused me to lose, to be eliminated. Simple as that. If he wasn't there, I would have won. So I should be the one who's challenging. I should have been the Openweight champion right now. Simple as. Like, regardless of if what happened with... I should have been in, if anything, really Kai's position. I should have been the last one against Leo. And if the same thing had happened with me, that happened to Kai, right now I'd be in the same position saying I deserve another shot at Leo. I deserve a one-on-one shot. So how about we make it official? If I can actually beat Remus Kane and finish this once and for all, not inside the ropes, give me a shot at Leo McLean.
Well,
that's all I want. That's all, you don't even need to pay me for the match. You don't even need to pay me when I win.
I mean, certainly...
my winner's pass. Give me the gold that I want. Don't give me the winner's pass. Give me a match. Simple as.
Well,
I want a match. I deserve to be the Openweight champion. There's no one else on that roster who should be Openweight champion but me. That's not arrogance talking. I promise you that's not arrogance talking. That's just the way things should have been. Remus shouldn't be in Firestar Championship Wrestling. Not because he doesn't deserve that out of his own ability or something, but he shouldn't be there. Like fate.
Well, I noticed that Remus works and shows up in companies that, yeah, I mean, there's a point that Remus has showed up in other promotions, other names. I won't name them here. You know, some of you might know by now.
What has he done? Every single time, no matter which promotion he shows up in, it's got beef with me.
Well, I mentioned that this has been a feud that's been going on for several months. It's in different companies, different promotions. It has been going on here, and it seems like maybe, just maybe, this could finally come to an end. I didn't want to get to Mr. Tunney because he says that I think we can definitely have that conversation. So if he doesn't come up with an answer tonight, I'm going to promise you, because we have, maybe 6 weeks or so between now and August the 12th. I'll make it
time to about it. Plenty of time.
And I was going to say,
you made an offer to me for the match with Remus, and how long did it take me to accept? Not long at all.
No.
So maybe you should do me a solid as well.
Absolutely. And I think
throw me a bone. Simple as.
Well, you know what? I'm going to put Mr. Tunney on the record here before the August 12th show. I promise you. If he doesn't do it in the next couple of weeks, I'll put him on the spot. I'll ask him that question because I'll be objective. I go right down the line. You know me. Sometimes you disagree with me. Sometimes you agree with me. You know I will call it right down that middle. And I'll ask our general manager.
And so does Stu. That's what I'm saying. He's a very fair man. And he can, and he knows.
No, I think he is. And I think Stu is not stupid. I think, I think he also knows what's best for business is that if Leo McLean can continue to retain his title on August the 12th, And when you beat Remus Kane, that we'll see that match later on this year in Firestar Championship Wrestling. I think it'll.
Even if Leo doesn't retain, just give me the shot at the openweight championship. I don't care about Leo. I don't care about who it is. Like, I know that for a fact that the odds of Leo retaining his championship are very low because he's got a lot of people that he has to deal with on August 12th.
He does. Fair point.
If Leo is that lucky, he's a very lucky man. He's very smart.
Well, he has been, and we've had him on here twice on Sportswire. He has certainly been a champion.
He's not someone that kind of reads his future, claims to have powers to be able to see his future, influence things. Well, that's fine. You can bring her along with you, Leo, if you're going to be the one. If you're going to be the one. But I promise you, after August 12th, I'm going to be that guy.
Yeah, I think, listen, his title reign has been tenuous at best. His grip on the openweight title, we'll have to see if he continues come August the 12th. But I know one thing, Stu Tunney, our GM, we know we love you here on Sportswire. You're on the hot spot here for this. You are definitely going to feel the heat if you don't make that decision. We'll certainly talk about it here. And before I get to one more thought and closing thoughts, I want to say hello to my guest later tonight, Mr. Omen Black, the former IMF champion of the world. Good evening, my good friend Tom, young Horus. Welcome to my show. Obviously, Omen Black's another big guy, by the way. 5'11", 385 pounds. Another guy, maybe, one day you might want to step in a ring. He's from Iowa. You're from Sheffield now, so that could be certainly an interesting match. But also, by the way, before I get to one more thought, closing thoughts, happy belated birthday once again. So hopefully Mr. Tunney can give it.
I appreciate
hopefully Mr. Tunney can make your birthday even better.
So I mean, I didn't even get a card from. I didn't even get him. He didn't even get me a card for my birthday.
What?
I'm pretty sure my birthday is the first birthday in Firestar Championships, especially since he became general manager.
So, well, you know what? Now he's got to really. Now
exactly. He's got to make up. He's got to make up for my birthday.
He's got. Listen, he's got it. Now he's on. Now he's really on the clock here. Now he's really on the hot spot. So now he's got to make sure that he gets the job done. I'm sure. Again, we have a lot of Firestar to talk about. I'll talk about obviously what Hammerhead's going to come back on. I spoke with Hammerhead. I know, so we'll have a lot of coverage of Firestar as we get closer to the 12th of August. So I have no doubt that we'll talk about that. But do you anywhere else that we might see you in? I know there's another company called Brawl we spoke about here on Sportswire Radio. I mean, any thoughts on them? I know another company that I also heard is coming back that we spoke about here on Sportswire Radio is Blackheart Wrestling. I hear is finally coming back. So, anything you want to say on those companies here and a potential sighting for young Horus?
Well, yeah, exactly. Let's go. We'll start off with Brawl, and like I've said before, Brandon Jordan is in my sight.
Yes.
He's always been my target since day one, I guess. I'm ready because I deserve any chance at the ADX Division Championship. I believe that division is everything that I define. I think that Brawl would be remiss to not give me the opportunity at Brandon Jordan one more time. Like what happened last match, I was the second man in that final two. Brandon got one over me. That's okay. But I can guarantee you, let me get my hands on Brandon one more time, Brawl Management. You won't be disappointed. Promise you. So, tell you what, actually. Brawl on August 5th. I know that's going to be the next show that I'll be in. Give me that match with Brandon. I don't know if you're listening right now, but I'm definitely going to be sending this stream over to them.
And I'll make sure we clip that on Instagram. Brawl, it's what we do. I'll make sure that they hear that as well. So we'll take care of that also.
Shot at Brandon. I think in that match there were a lot of guys who didn't deserve to be in that position, fighting for that championship. I think me and Brandon, one-on-one, we will see who's the better wrestler.
All right. Well, you know what? That sounds like something I think a lot of people would like to see. Omen Black would like to wish you a happy late belated birthday, little buddy. I don't know if that's a veiled shot there from Mr. Black. I know Mr. Black's making an appearance later on Sportswire tonight. I'll certainly maybe ask him to further elaborate or maybe We'll have to see. But also, Mr. Tony would like to respond. I'm going to keep any confirmation until I'm back on Sportswire again. I also will give the
Oh,
extra seat to the Rev himself. So I'm going to tell you this, Mr. Tunney. What's your schedule 2 weeks from now? So what's today, the 29th? So let's say, what are you doing Friday night, July the 14th? I think that would be, right? July 14th. So if you have an open time on your calendar, I'm going to go right here and say July the 14th. Mr. Tunney, if you're available and you want to put on your Jack Tunney like thinking cap here, the old WWF president there, we'd love to talk about that amongst a number of things here related to Firestar Championship Wrestling. So if you're available July 14th, we'd love to have you. So we'll certainly see if that's something we can accommodate both sides with, and maybe talk about this young Horus situation here with the Open Weight Championship. So stay tuned for all of that here. We spoke a lot tonight about what's going on with you. I think we established that you're no longer what Henry Winter was saying. I think gold is on the horizon, whether it's with Stu Tunney making the right decision, whether it's in NBPW, whether it's in anywhere else you're going to be in. I think we're evolving into who young Horus is. So I think we've established that from where we were a year ago. And I'm very excited to see more of your work ahead. And also GT Ministries, because I get to watch that one live on the same time you're
yeah,
on. So I'm very excited about GT Ministries. That is very
in the future few months. Like you say, GT Ministries, Firestar, Brawl, New British Promotions, UKW every single week, Friday night, Showdown, come on, baby. And finally, September 10th, Blackheart Wrestling's coming back.
That's one, and a lot of people love Blackheart.
One place that I'm really excited to be at this year, Blackheart Championship Wrestling. I can't wait to go back to Geisley. I can't wait.
Absolutely. That was a place that we had a lot of people on, and I know my guest here, Saturday night here, Warhog, when he had a different alias, loved Blackheart. So a lot of guys and gals really loved Blackheart. I cannot wait to see that here. And also, we have a confirmation that Mr. Tunney will be joining us Friday night, July.
Tuning in.
2 weeks from now, I'm going to ask Mr. Tunney about this. So you can expect you're going to be a big topic of the discussion here. Let me reassure you, my friend, that is going to be the case. So we'll have to wait for that answer on July the 14th, around a little after 8 p.m. British Standard Time. So very excited that our GM will be back. Very excited to see what his answer will be, and very excited to see you in a number of different places that we're friends here in Sportswire, especially NBPW, especially Firestar Championship Wrestling. Follow those on NBP Wrestling, Firestar Championship Wrestling on Instagram, Facebook as well. So, my friend, I turn it over to you. Anything else you want to plug, share, say? Plug the merchandise link or social medias, and the floor is yours, and let's go for it.
That's the merchandise going to Pro Wrestling Tees, Young Horus. For the newest Young Horus merch.
I got to get it.
22 Young Horus shirt. Soon, very, very soon, I'm going to be coming out with the 2023 shirt. It's already been released, and it's actually available for purchase if you contact me directly on Instagram or Facebook. It is also available for purchase at UKW, and more than likely it's going to be available at any merch stands that you'll find me wrestling at. For any shows that you'll find me wrestling at, even. And go find me on Instagram, Horus Wrestler. Find me on Facebook, Young Horus, the Young Horus, whichever way you want to have it. I am also going to be every single week, Friday Night Showdown. Mr. Friday Night is back in the building. He's back in UKW. Your sister's favorite wrestler, Young Horus. The Giant Killer has been released. Let's go. Tune in every single week. UKW.TV.
Absolutely. And there's a number of talent that we're always excited about here. J-Ro Lewis, obviously Tommy Dillon, the wild card. It's a slew of talent in UKW that we always love talking about. Joe Sedgwick. I mean, you can go just down the list. Leonie Rose. I mean, you got a whole slate of UKW stars.
Don't get me started on Leonie Rose. Don't even get me started.
Not going to go there.
Unfinished business.
Oh. Well, listen, there's a number of people there. Listen, we're going to certainly one day, not today, let's focus on Remus Kane. Let's focus on that. Let's focus on what happens with you and Mr. Kemper. There's a number of things we'll talk about here. I have no doubt in the future we'll do all of that. Please follow Young Horus on all those social media pages, those great pages, Instagram, Horus Wrestler, Facebook. I think I tagged you the wrong one because on Facebook, unfortunately, I'm blocked on my computer. So my phone, I don't remember the handles. I was trying to do that, but we'll try to fix that later on. But thank you, my friend, as always. Keep up the great work. You are definitely on your way. Like I said, and I think you said, this could very well be the summer of Horus. And I have no doubt, July 22nd, July 28th, August the 5th is just going to only get things started, my friend.
You know it, Tom. Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in.
Absolutely, no question about all of that here. We are on Sportswire Radio with Young Horus. You see him in a number of different pro wrestling companies. It's UKW. You've seen him in Firestar Championship Wrestling, NBPW, Brawl. Now we're going to see him hopefully back in GT Ministries. You're going to see him also here. I had a fumbled moment there. GT Ministries. We're also going to see him in Blackheart Pro. That was the one, because, Blackheart we haven't mentioned in such a long time.
It feels like it's been an eternity almost.
I think Blackheart's been 6 months maybe since the early beginning of the year, right? January. So yeah, that's why I kind of brain farted there. So yeah, Blackheart was the one I was trying to say. GT Ministries, July 22nd. So all those great companies, friends with many of them. You're going to see Young Horus as a part of those companies. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce. I will be back here later this evening with Omen Black, Combat Joe, Soldier, Dark Kron, Matthew Forsaken, some surprise guests. Who knows what else? We'll also be back here 2 p.m. Eastern time, right before Money in the Bank with Warhog himself. So Warhog, who is the champion, the Youngblood champion. And so also have Monday, we'll have on here Mr. Hampton himself from Breakout Pro Wrestling. So Mr. Hampton will talk about Breakout Pro Wrestling's debut show. So a lot to talk about here. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce. I'm going to go catch a breather. If you're on sportnarium.com/player, you're going back to your regularly scheduled program. If you're on YouTube, if you're on Facebook, wherever you might be, thank you for tuning in. And also, Omen would like to say, Tom, I'll see you later with the fill in the blanks of the DKW. Yes, you will. Thank you. Good night, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are on the number one global radio station that is Sportswire.